Today we're going to go over basic chords in their standard and in their minor form. These chords are used by every musician in almost every hit song I can think of. I'm sure a lot of these are used in your favorite songs as well, so learning these chords is very important if you want to learn how to play your favorite songs. We'll go through each chord slowly and in detail, and with visual aids to help you get the chord right. There are 7 main chords. There's an A, a B, C, D, E, F, and G. We'll go through each of them from their major form, or happy form as some people like to call it, and their minor form, or their sad form as some people like to call it. Before we start, let's get in tune. Let's start with our big E string. Okay, there's the big E. Now let's move down to the A string. Okay, there's the A. Let's move down to the D string. Okay, there's the D. Let's move down to the G string now. There's our G. Let's move down to the B string. There's our B, and last but not least, our high E string. Okay, now that we're in tune, let's get started on our first chord. Let's name our fingers. Finger number 1 is your index finger. Finger number 2 is your middle finger. Finger number 3 is your ring finger. Finger number 4 is our pinky. Now let's get started on our first chord, the A chord. The first chord we'll learn is the A chord. As seen in the picture, the A chord uses 3 fingers. The A chord uses fingers number 2, 3, and 4. What we'll do is we'll take finger number 2 and we'll put it right onto the 2nd fret onto the D string. Finger number 3 is going to go onto the 2nd fret on the G string. Finger number 4 is going to come down here on the 2nd fret on the B string. The strings that we're going to play are the A, the D, the G, the B, and the high E. What we're going to try and do is not play the big E, because it's not really included into the chord. The A chord should sound like this. The next chord we'll learn is an A minor, which also uses 3 fingers. The A minor chord is played also with 3 fingers. Now you can do this in 2 different ways. You can use either finger 1, 2, and 3, or you can use fingers 2, 3, and 4. I'll demonstrate both, and then you can decide which is most comfortable for you. Using fingers now 1, 2, and 3, the chord is played like this. Finger number 2 is going to go onto the 2nd fret onto the D string. Finger number 3 is going to go onto the 2nd fret on the G string, and then finger number 1 is going to go on the 1st fret on the B string. Finger number 4 isn't going to do anything, so just keep it out of the way. Again, like the A, the strings we're going to play include the A, the D string, the G string, the B string, and the high E string. Again, we're going to try not to play the big E string as it's not included in the chord. I usually use my thumb to just kind of touch it a little bit so that you can't hear it. The A minor chord should sound like this. The next chord is a little bit more difficult, the B chord. The B chord uses all 4 fingers and is a bar chord. Now the B chord is a bar chord. It's difficult. It's not played many times in this exact shape, but we will learn it just so that you know. A bar chord means your finger number 1 bars over all of the strings. These are very difficult, and as time goes by and you play them more, you'll develop a callus on your finger here, just like you do on the tips of your fingers, which makes it easier for you to play. So the more bar chords you play, the easier they will become. For the B bar chord, what we're going to do is we're going to take our finger number 1 and we're going to bar all of the second fret from the A string all the way down to the high E string. The big E string is not going to be played in this chord. Our other fingers, finger number 2, 3, and 4, are going to go on to the 4th fret. Finger number 2 is going to go on the 4th fret on the D string. Finger number 3 is going to go also on the 4th fret but on the G string. And finger number 4 is going to go onto the 4th fret on the B string. As I said, number 1 finger is going to touch all of these. The chord should sound like this.
The next chord, B minor, is also a bar chord and also uses all 4 fingers.
The B minor chord, just like the B chord, is also a bar chord and also difficult to play. It's very similar though. Our number 1 finger is going to go in the same position on the 2nd fret from the A string all the way down to the high E string. But we're going to incorporate all our fingers again. Finger number 3 is going to go onto the 4th fret on the D string. Finger number 4 is going to go onto the 4th fret of the G string. Finger number 2 this time is going to go on the 3rd fret on the B string. And then finger number 1 is going to have to reach up here and push all of these strings down. A B minor chord should sound like this.
The next chord is a C chord. The C chord uses 3 fingers.
A C chord, which uses 3 fingers, is played like so. It uses fingers number 1, 2, and 3. Finger number 4 we're not going to use this time. So, finger number 3 is going to go onto the 3rd fret on the A string. Finger number 2 is going to go onto the 2nd fret on the D string. And then finger number 1 up here is going to go onto the 1st fret on the B string. Now you can play this chord with the open E included. It'll sound a little thicker, but it's not necessary. We'll play it with the open E just so it's a little easier. The C chord should sound like this. The C chord without the E will sound like this. Not quite as heavy, but still sounds really nice.
The next chord, C minor, is a bar chord and also uses all 4 fingers.
Now the C minor chord is also a bar chord. It's very similar to the B minor or the B chord, in which we're going to have to cover all the strings with our finger number 1. Now what our finger number 2, 3, and 4 are going to do is something down here on the 5th fret and the 4th fret. So what we'll do with finger number 3, our ring finger, is we're going to push down onto the D string on the 5th fret. Finger number 4 is going to go onto the 5th fret as well, but onto the G string. Finger number 2, our middle finger, is going to go onto the 4th fret on the B string. And like we said, finger number 1 is going to have to push down all of these strings here from A right through to the high E. Now, a C minor should sound like this.
The next chord, D, uses only 3 fingers.
The next chord is a D chord. The D chord is used in many songs. It's very easy to do. You can play it in 2 different ways. We're going to use fingers number 1, 2, and 3. Now for some reason, if you'd like to, you can also use fingers 2, 3, and 4, but it's not done very often. Okay, so we're just going to do the one version, 1, 2, and 3. So what we're going to do, finger number 1 is going to go onto the 2nd fret onto the G string. Finger number 3 is going to go onto the 3rd fret onto the B string. And then finger number 2 is going to tuck in between the 2 of them and press down onto the 2nd fret of the high E string. Now, just like some of the other chords, not all the strings are played. So what I'm going to do is I put my thumb around here so that I don't play my big E string. Playing the A and the D string is okay, but you really don't want to have that big E in your D chord. This is what the D chord should sound like.
The next chord, D minor, uses 3 fingers, and you can interchange your fingers instead of using the same 3 all
The D
the time.
minor chord is also using just 3 fingers. You can choose which fingers are best for you and what's most comfortable. One way of playing it is with fingers number 1, 2, and 3. Or as I like to do it sometimes, with fingers 1, 2, and 4, so that it's a little easier to stretch. So what we'll do is finger number 2, our middle finger, is going to go onto the 2nd fret on the G string. Finger number 2 is going to go onto the 3rd fret on the B string. And then finger number 1 is going to press up here onto the 1st fret of the high E string. Now, a D minor should sound like this. Again, not playing this big E string because we don't want that in our chord. As I was showing you, the other way to play this chord is replacing our finger number 3 with our finger number 4, so that it makes it a little easier to play the chord. So finger number 3 is not going to be used, and the chord still sounds the same.
The next chord is the E chord. The E chord is used with 3 fingers, and you can also interchange this chord using different fingers.
An E chord is one of the most widely used chords. It's very simple, and it can be played in 2 different ways, which I'll show you. The first way is using fingers number 1, 2, and 3. Finger number 4 doesn't do anything in this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to use finger number 2. We're going to press down onto the 2nd fret on the A string. Finger number 3 is going to press down on the 2nd fret on the D string. And then our finger number 1 up here is going to press down onto the 1st fret on to the G string. All strings are played in this one, and it's very simple to do. And that's what your E chord should sound like. The other way to play an E chord is not using finger number 1, but 2 through to 4. Now in this case, we would use finger number 3, and we'd press down onto the 2nd fret on the A string. Finger number 4 would press onto the 2nd fret of the D string, and then our finger number 2 press down onto the 1st fret on the G string. The chord still sounds the same, but this finger can do whatever you want. Whichever's most comfortable for you, use it that way.
The next chord, E minor, is only using 2 fingers. Whichever 2 fingers is most comfortable for you is what you should use.
An E minor chord only uses 2 fingers. Whichever 2 fingers are best for you, I suggest using those. So we'll go through finger number 1, finger number 2, or if you want, finger number 2 and 3, which helps you transition from an E minor to an E, or if you really want to, we can use fingers number 3 and 4. So we'll go through each one of them so you can see what they all look like. Finger number 1 and 2, what we'll do is we'll put finger number 1 onto the 2nd fret on the A string. Finger number 2 is going to go onto the 2nd fret on the D string. And then we play all the chords, all the strings. Then we can replace these fingers from number 1 to 2 to number 2 to 3. All we do is put our fingers in the same position and we play it again. Playing in this form gives you the option of putting your finger down to make an E minor an E. And last but not least, we can use fingers number 3 and 4 as well.
The next chord, F, is a bar chord and incorporates all 4 fingers.
An F chord uses all 4 fingers, and it's also a bar chord. It's a little bit difficult to play, but I'm going to show you how to play it. It's going to use finger number 1 is going to bar all the strings from the big E all the way down to the high E string, like so. Meanwhile, fingers number 2, 3, and 4 are going to be down like so. Finger number 3 is going to go onto the 3rd fret on the A string. Finger number 4 is going to go right below it onto the 3rd fret on the D string. And finger number 2 is going to go onto the 2nd fret on the G string. Now if we put our finger number 1 back down on top of all the strings on the 1st fret, our F chord should sound like so.
The next chord, F minor, also is a bar chord, but only uses 3 of your fingers.
An F minor chord is played the exact same way as an F chord, except for there's going to be one finger that we don't use. Finger number 1 will be in its position on the 1st fret, barring all the strings. Finger number 3 and 4 will be in the same location as they were before, on the 3rd fret of the A and the D string, but finger number 2 is not going to be used. Instead, we're going to touch the 1st fret on the G string now, instead of the 2nd fret on the G string, which is where our finger number 2 was for the original F chord. So if we play this like so, an F minor should sound like this.
The next chord is a variation of the F chord, which is not a bar chord. This also uses all 4 fingers.
If playing an F or an F minor is a problem, there is a variation that you can play it in a non-bar chord formation. For the F, we can play it like this. Finger number 3 and 4 will be in their regular location as they were. Finger number 3 on the 3rd fret on the A string. Finger number 4 on the 3rd fret of the D string. Finger number 2 will assume its position where it was on the F chord, on the 2nd fret on the G string. And then finger number 1 is going to have to press down both the B and the high E string on the 1st fret. And it should sound like this. In this variation, the big E string is not played.
The next chord, F minor variation, is a non-bar chord form. This uses only 3 fingers.
The F minor variation is played just like the F variation, except for, as we did in the F minor bar chord, we're not going to use our 2nd finger. Instead, fingers number 3 and 4 will be in their regular location on the 3rd fret of the A string and the 3rd fret of the D string. And then finger number 1 is going to bar the 1st fret of the G, B, and high E string, like so. An F minor variation should sound like this, without the big E string being played.
The next chord, G, uses only 3 fingers. You can use whichever 3 fingers is most comfortable for you to complete the chord.
A G chord is one of the most widely used chords as well. It can be played in 4 different ways. 2 of those ways are probably the most important and most popular. I'll go through them in sequence. The first one can be used with a few different variations of fingers, like so, or like so. I'll teach you both. Now how this is going to be played is the first variation will be finger number 1 onto the 2nd fret on the A string. Finger number 2 goes onto the 3rd fret on the big E string. And then finger number 4 comes down here and gets put onto the high E string on the 3rd fret. Finger number 3 doesn't really need to be used this time. A G should sound like this. A different way to play it would be with using not your 1st finger, but your 2nd and 3rd finger up here. So finger number 2 will take the place of finger number 1 on the 2nd fret on the A string, finger number 3 will take the place of finger number 2 on the big E string on the 3rd fret. Finger number 4 is going to remain in its location down here on the 3rd fret on the high E string. The chord will sound the same, like so.
The next chord is a G major, or what I like to call a 4-finger G, where all 4 fingers are used.
The next variation is called a G major, or what I like to call a 4-finger G. It's played exactly the way a G is played in the first form I showed you, except finger number 3 is going to do something this time. So we'll go over it again. Finger number 1 gets placed onto the 2nd fret on the A string. Finger number 2 gets pressed onto the 3rd fret on the big E string. Now finger number 3 is going to press onto the 3rd fret onto the B string. Finger number 4 is going to go right below it on the 3rd fret on the high E. So it should look like this, and a G major or 4-finger G should sound like so.
The next chord, G, this is a bar chord version of a G chord. It uses all 4 fingers.
Another variation of playing a G is to play it in the form of a bar chord. This is also difficult, but similar to the B minor or F. What we will do is we will take our finger number 1 and bar all the strings on the 3rd fret. What we will then do with our other 3 fingers is the same as a B or an F. We will put finger number 3 onto the 5th fret on the A string. Finger number 4 will go right below it onto the 5th fret of the D string. Then our finger number 2 will come down here onto the 4th fret on the G string. Meanwhile, finger number 1 will press down all the rest of the strings on the 3rd fret. This G bar chord will sound like so.
The next chord is a G minor bar chord. This chord uses only 3 fingers.
The last variation of G is played in a bar chord form. It's a G minor. G minor is played exactly like the G that we just showed you in bar chord form, though finger number 2 is not going to be used. As before, finger number 1 will bar all the strings on the 3rd fret. Finger number 3 and 4 will assume their position onto the 5th fret of the A string and the D string. Finger number 2 will go unused. Finger number 1 will assume its position. A G minor chord should sound like this. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to practice these chords and practice changing between them as well. This will help you gain the skill and the speed that you'll need to use these chords in all your favorite songs that you look forward to learning in the future. Thanks again for watching.